Okay, so we're going to talk now about what's called the box model in cascading style sheets. And the important thing to remember here, and let's go into our lesson. The important thing to remember here is that that every element that you put on an HTML page can be thought of as a box. And that means that it has 4 different elements. One is the margin, and that's how far away it is from whatever whatever other element it's near. So let's say you had 2 images next to each other, then you would have a margin between those images. Then there's a border, and that's something that you make visible or not visible. Then there is the amount of padding or space between the border and the content, and then finally there's the content. And that content could be an image, that content could be text, that content could be a table, it could be whatever whatever we want. So if you look at your lesson, you're going to see a definition of the different parts of the box model. But you want to learn this box model because part of course, what CSS is good for is enabling us to determine how things are displayed, how things are positioned, and to be able to do that in a very specific way. So you want to be familiar with what each different element of the box model is. The thing you want to be aware of with the box model, and we'll be dealing with this in our example, is that the entire box is more than just the content. Let's say you had an image that was 100 pixels wide. Well, you might also have padding of 2 pixels. You might have a border of 2 pixels, and then you might have a margin between that image and whatever's near it of 10 pixels. In which case then you're taking 100 plus 2 on either side plus 2 on either side plus 10 on either side. So I guess that would be 128 pixels. So you just have to be aware that whatever here is in your content is one thing, and then you need to add everything else together. And I'll show you what I mean by that when we deal with our edit. So let's go into our try it yourself. And what we want to do here is we have an image, Crest JPG, and that width is 200 pixels. Now what we're doing with that is we're just using that as a placeholder, and then we can see here that we have a div with a class of sample, and we say here is some sample text. And what we really want to do is make sure that this div class item has the right attributes to be total of 200 pixels. So let's take a look at how it ends up. Alright, so we have this image which is 100 pixels wide, and then you can see here that this is about the same width. So this looks like it's a total of 200 pixels. So how did we get to 200 pixels? Well, so I have here, I'm defining a class, and I make the class 170 pixels. Well, why didn't I make it 200 pixels? Because look what happens if I make it 200 pixels. This is the width of the content within the div class. Now right here, that's just this sample text. But look what happens if I make it 200 pixels. So I take the text there is 200 pixels, that's fine, but it's not taking into account the border, the margin, and the padding. So remember, we have to deal with all of those as well. And so I have the border is 2 pixels. Let's go back to 170. And then the border is 2 pixels. And then the no margin, and then 10 padding. So that should actually be 5 pixels for that to be a total, right? So if I go here, you can see that this is exactly the same width because it takes into account no margin to the side, 5 pixel width of the border. Let's change that to solid because it'll be a little clearer to see. Okay, and then how much padding between the border and the beginning of the text? I think I had that as 10, right? So there's 10 pixels of padding, and then there's the width of the content, which is the there. Now let's say I change that. Oh wait, we did that already. All right, so these are the different elements, and we're going to go through each one of these individually. Today we're just going to focus on the border, and so we say modify the different elements of box to how each is connected. I want you to go through basically and just change the numbers for each of these different items so that you can see how they're connected. And then I want you to make sure that you have a div tag, like my sample tag here, that has a solid border, that the entire thing adds up to 200 pixels. Now remember, when you're adding it, you got to add this. You have to add your border, but your border is going to have, for width, it's going to have a left side and a right side. Okay, so this isn't, you don't count this as 5, you count this as 5 times 2. Margin is going to be on the left and the right. So it's not, whatever you have here, it can't just be one time, it has to be 2 times, or left and right totaling up for the width. And same with padding. Okay. So just experiment with that a little bit. We're going to be digging into each element in a separate lesson. So don't, just experiment with how you create the box. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to create, put some additional things down for the border. All right. So let's see. Basically, you can specify the style of the border, the width of the border, and then the color of the border. So let's say we want to do border, right, style, and rather than having that be solid, let's say dashed. Is it dashed or dotted? I think it's dotted. Okay. So you can see I was able to dot that. All right, and you can go into our lesson and see all the different options. So let's then say we want the border top color to be green. Okay, you can see how I do that. Then let's say we want the border left width to be, so right now we have it at 5 pixels. Let's do that to be 2 pixels, so it'll be a little thinner. Okay, so you can see that's a little bit thinner. All right, let's see if there's what are our other options down here. We've basically done all these. Let's do a different style for the bottom. So border bottom style is, let's do a double. So border style double. Okay, because you can see a little double border. Now you can take a look at the different things that you can choose from in terms of border style. You already see color and width. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but you can experiment with the different ones that you can choose for border style by going to the review lesson and experiment with them. Take a look at them, see what you like, what you don't like. But that's the first item that we want to do with the box model. That's the first sort of dig-in item, and deal with that one here on this lesson.